Hello and let's go. It's time for another Big Mish Movement workshop. Number 29 today, here to talk about why does my back hurt? It's the big one. Everybody's got back pain or struggles with back pain at some point in time with their life. It is a real problem that people tend to suffer from, whether it's your athletics or whether you're sedentary or desk sitter, weekend warrior. We all tend to get that back pain at some point in time in our life. It can be very debilitating, or it can be just very nagging. And there's always a little bit of confusion when people talk about what they need to do for their back pain. Very few people really know what it is that they need to be focusing on. And I'm here to talk about the things that we should really narrow it down to and be aware of and be conscious of, because if we can work on these things, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to keep that back pain at bay, because everything kind of falls into a pattern and it's all kind of related into a dysfunctional system that we need to get a little bit more functional. That being said, what causes back pain? Let's go through the various different things. Number one is muscle pain, muscle tightness, over tightness, torquing and twisting of one side. That can definitely be very nagging and painful sometimes. Maybe you just have it just so tight you can't move. Big one could be from overuse. It's just going all the time. It just never has a chance to ease up. Or it could be that it's maybe a little bit weak or lacks stability somewhere, and it's neurologically becoming stiff just to create that tensegrity, that tension that we need to move us through life. However, preceding that, more often than not, there's usually some sort of joint dysfunction, which could be the second type of pain. It could be a joint pain. So we could also have something going on with the lumbar spine, the back muscles. Again, if they're torqued and twisted, that's not going to be very comfortable and could be resulting in some pain. Or it could just be years and years of compression, and those discs are getting really tightly compressed, and maybe if we're squeezed a little bit to one side, we get the bulging disc coming out to one side. So definitely it could be a joint pain underlying all of that muscle pain as well, or more often than not there'll be some sort of joint deformities causing the muscle pain because of the imbalance, which, by the way, usually starts at the hip. So I should also mention there should be, if the hip imbalance, that's definitely going to cause a lot of stress and tension patterns up in your back. Not necessarily, but it could be. We're just going through the various things. Your posture, how you hold yourself up. So your posture is basically the tale your body is telling. It's how you hold yourself up naturally. It is also a symbol of what you feel confident in, and also sometimes signs of how you hold yourself stressfully, because if we're not balanced and we are holding ourselves with a lot of extension, maybe a little bit of anterior pelvic tilt, you know, these are sometimes telling tales of what we're not getting enough of. Again, posture is affected by joints, which are also affected by muscles, so it's all kind of related. But again, if you are holding yourself naturally in a disadvantaged position, which basically puts your back in an overuse state, and then you therefore move always in that overusing extended state, your back never gets a chance to rest, and it gets overly used. And then even if you are working out, good chances are because you've got poor posture or overusage somewhere, you're going to be driving with that lower back a lot more, and it can compromise from your gains and where you want to be getting your gains, mainly in the lower body and the core. So posture and how you hold yourself is a big deal, but again, it's all related to your muscle balances and sort of joint, where you favor things, stuff that we're going to work on, because I'm going to show you 5 exercises that are going to help your back pain and things that you can chip away at, and that will also touch on the things that we're talking on. So next one is after posture, was because we're lacking movement. We're lacking healthy movement. We're too stagnant maybe, or we're too going forward and going always extending. Maybe we're training only this pattern and we don't have enough of this reciprocation pattern. If our backs are always locked up, then that's gonna fatigue, and we need some sort of healthy movement or something to reciprocate and take our spine in the other directions of which they're constantly being pulled in, which usually is upright. If you're a desk sitter and you slouch a lot, that's usually a state of rest, because eventually you're just too tired to even hold yourself up. If you are well balanced and you have good core and you've done your homework and you lift some weights and you're neurologically charged, the body holds itself up a lot more with ease. It's usually because we don't have the right balances. Our back is the first one to hold us up naturally, and it gets tired, and then we slouch. And then we get even more problems because, again, when we slouch, the back is going to be the first thing to try and hold you up. So now your back is trying to support you in a totally opposite position of what it's strong in. So that's why we get all kinds of pain there. However, we need some kind of movement. I wasn't really talking about sitting, I was more talking about moving. We need some kind of movement, something to reciprocate, alternate, and take us through the different ranges our spine is supposed to go through. Remember, we got all these vertebrae. There's a lot of movement that can happen here. We should be exploiting some of that healthily, consciously, if we are suffering from back pain, because moving the spine is always, a healthy spine is a spine that moves, basically. However, on to the next point though, because we don't want to just be moving all flaccid and lax and not having any support. More often than not, the spine is lacking support. So I was going to say lacking stability. This is a big one. This is where it's really pretty much causing a lot of pain, because we lack proper stability. What are we lacking? Proper core stability. We're overusing our backs, not using our core enough. And usually when people train core, if you're not consciously regressing and making sure that your abs are doing more of the work and not your lower back, you're kind of feeding your patterns. So basically, we tend to pick exercises that are way too difficult, and then everything fires. You might be getting a good workout, but you're not retuning these dominant patterns. So we need to get a lot more core stability, which I'm going to touch on in the next point, because it's also lacking from breathing. We have poor breathing tendencies. When we have poor breathing tendencies, we usually tend to have a poor core. When we have poor breathing tendencies, we also tend to have overuse backs, because our back wants to tend to breathe for us or help us breathe. It also makes a little bit of sense because the diaphragm is attached to the spine. However, it's not necessarily the most optimal position for the diaphragm, and it's more of a stress response to get your diaphragm to kind of not only get some air in, but brace for us. So it's also a stabilizing mechanism, but not a very good one, not a very powerful one. We want more abs for that stabilization. However, the natural tendency will be a lower back stabilization or kick on, facilitated with a breath hold usually, or a little gasp of air. And that's just the body's stress signal. It's the body's way of sort of creating a little bit of extra tension. Not the good type of tension, not the one we want, because again, that's overusing the backs. It's going to overly jam the vertebrae. We want more neutrality, and like I said, because it is a bit of a stress response, think of it as we want to be a little bit more mindful of balancing out the body and not being so overly stressful. And again, it's related to breathing, and stress people are stressful breathers, and hand in hand. Mind you, we take over 22,000 breaths a day, and if we are taking stressful breaths in a day, that back is on all the time and never allowed to rest. We will go through some exercises to combat this. So let's just be mindful. And then the last but not least, kind of like I touched on with stability, but just lacking support overall. So mainly I'm talking about hips, Core is one of them, but hips usually help move us forward. And when we're lacking that hip strength, the back usually tends to really want to drive us forward. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to overly simplify it, but getting strong hips and a strong core will seriously lessen your chances of back pain or take away your back pain, minimize your back pain. It's pretty much the missing piece, but then again, what do we mean by core? What do we mean by hips? I'm gonna go through some of that for you. But that's basically it, my 7 kind of different reasons of why we're getting back pain. It pretty much does come down to one of these. You're either lacking support from your core, you're either lacking support when you're moving, and that usually comes from the hips, maybe some hamstrings, but that's pretty much hips too. You could be a stressful breather or a stressful person, and that usually goes hand in hand with stressful movements. We want to be just a little bit more mindful of the way we move, but we also want to be a little bit more balanced both ways, in physically and mentally in how we move. And that's why we're going to talk about some of that as we go through it. So let's touch on it. Let's go through this very first exercise that's going to kind of bring everything together for you. All right? So we need abs, core, we need movement, we need stability, fueling the movement, and we also want breathing, pushing all of that together. I'm going to give you a move that pretty much brings it all together. I actually happened to recently do a YouTube tutorial on this, so go check out this on YouTube if you want more details. But I'm going to touch on it briefly and give you 3 reps. The segmental toe touch. This is a great one. You're getting everything in this. Grab a yoga block or roller or towels, something to squeeze between the knees. The reason we want to squeeze something between the knees is this helps us be a little bit more tight and stabilized at the hips, and it allows your hamstrings to relax a bit, because at the end of the day, if they're overly tight, it's going to limit your ability to go down. However, we want to go down by mobilizing the spine, curling throughout. Each vertebrae, one by one, curling down. We're going to facilitate this with an exhale, breathing out, blowing all the way out until you get to the very bottom. As you blow out and get rid of everything in your lungs, notice that your abs start to pull in. That's going to help pull your rib cage down. So not only we're getting a little bit of core, as you'll notice your abs tension up, we're pulling the rib cage down, we're mobilizing the spine, we're moving air, we're getting into that parasympathetic calming state, and that's actually going to allow your back to elongate even further. The point of this, you want to do reps up to 5, but I'm going to do 3 real quick. So arms up, take a big breath in, chin to chest, start exhaling, exhale, 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 blow, blow, blow till you got no more left to go. Get rid of everything and hold for a second. Come up, breathe in. I let my arms hang. I stay tight at the hips, squeeze my glutes even, and I restack from the bottom up. Arms hang, head is the last to come up. I take a reset breath in, so I'm not gasping for breath. Arms up, breathe in, and exhale. Chin to chest, abs get pulled in. Blow, 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 get rid of everything in your lungs. Hold for a second, and breathe in. Squeeze that block, squeeze those hips, drop those arms, restack, restack, restack. Change the last one. Take a reset breath. Arms up, one more. Big breath in, chin to chest, exhale. Abs get pulled in, blow, blow, blow till you got no more left to go. Hold, and breathe in. Chin is the last thing to come up. So that's just 3 breaths. If you do 5, you're gonna get even more deeper into your breath cycle. You're gonna get even more ab activation and even deeper into your parasympathetic calming state, which all of that combined is gonna allow your lower back to be its most mobile. And you're getting segmental movement throughout each of your vertebrae. So it's just a winner all around. You're getting healthy movement, stuff that all stuff that you need. Okay, so the next one. That one was a great one for breathing, but let me go to one of my go-tos for breathing, especially if you are also already in pain and maybe you can't move your back as much, you can't do a toe touch just yet. Let's start with this one. And ironically, we are going to actually even work a little bit our hamstrings. We do not want to be manipulating our hamstrings too much, especially when it comes to lower back pain. We want more hamstrings. Difference is here, we're not actually really stretching our hamstrings as much as we are stretching our back. If you are feeling your hamstrings, it's because of the way your pelvis is held. They're being pulled. So that's probably not comfortable for them even, which is why maybe you want to start with this exercise. I would recommend you go to a wall, a flat surface, but I'm going to be demonstrating right here on my chair. Place your feet into the wall at a 90-degree angle, right, like so. Put the block between your knees. You're going to push your feet into the wall lightly and slightly. So lightly into the wall and slightly peel your hips off the floor. Your lower back, everything should still be on the floor. You don't want to be completely relaxed. All we have is a little bit of hamstrings right here, okay? From here, hands, palms over the bottom ribs so that you can feel them move. And we're gonna go deep breaths, all the way in, all the way out, pause. All the way in, all the way out, pause. So remember, slightly in, pushing into the wall, slightly peel your tailbone off the floor, all the way in, through the nose, all the way out through the mouth. And pause. All the way in through the nose, all the way out through the mouth, and pause. One more, all the way in through the nose, all the way out through the mouth, and pause. Very good. Nice, nice. So that will help reposition a little bit of your hips because, again, hamstrings support our hips. They help ground our hips. When we're too anteriorly tilted, we're gonna be excessively curved in the back. So by giving yourself a little bit of hamstrings and grounding the pelvis, you stand up, you're gonna be pulling that down and giving a little bit more neutrality right here in the lower back. So as well as breathing deeply and getting these ribs drop down a little bit and move. Healthy rib cage movement is a healthy spine. So great exercise for getting the breathing going, as well as some of these mechanics of the rib cage, movement mechanics, but most importantly, a little bit of hamstrings to help pull the pelvis into more of a neutral position. The next one I got for you, 2 down, 3 more to go. The segmental cat. Okay, so this one's a little bit easier. We're just gonna do a cat-cow exercise, what you typically see people do, all right? But we're gonna take our time, we're gonna be conscious, we're gonna go very slowly and try to listen to my cues and listen to every part of the body. That's where you wanna be pushing through. You're gonna take your time and go as slow as you can. First things first is you're gonna arch all the way up, look all the way up at the ceiling, okay? I should have made come at a slight angle like this, okay? So, and drop your arms down, stick the hips out, chin up, okay? Number 1 is take your eyes and look down at your hands. Once you see your hands, start pushing yourself away from the floor, locking your elbows out, locking your shoulder blades out as much as possible. Translate that into a slight rib cage tuck down as you start to round your mid-back. Start drawing the abs up into your spine as you start rounding the lower back. Last but not least, take those hips, tuck them under. Round yourself as much as possible and take 3 deep breaths. Now, hips go first. Stay in this up position. Hips go out. Relax those abs down to the floor as your lower back starts to extend. Drop that rib cage down to the floor as your mid-back starts to extend. Let those arms drop down into the shoulder blade sockets. And then last but not least, take your chin and look up to the ceiling. And there you go. You just took your spine throughout its entire range in slow, conscious, healthy, controlled movement. Good stuff, really good stuff. If you do that a few times a day, you'll feel like your spine is moving a little bit better. It's just a practice and bringing awareness to areas that did not necessarily move as well before, because a lot of people's spines, they move as one, and we don't necessarily consciously know how to bend throughout all of our vertebrae. Keeping it moving, I got a core stabilization one, and then I got a hip movement one, and then we're done. So this core stabilization one, I just posted on my Instagram. I have it on my YouTube. Simple, basic concept of being able to pull the ribs down and contract our core, fighting stability, and being able to keep our ribs pulled down and breathing efficiently. This is big because normally we always want to extend our backs, especially when things get tough. So that's number one, is can you hold this core position and not allow your lower back to kick on? Number two will be, can you keep the ribs down and still be able to breathe deeply, which is a big deal. Usually when we want to breathe, guess what? We want to kick our backs on. So it's kind of testing our ability to stay contracted, keep your lower back off, and be able to breathe somewhat deeply while your core is engaged. If your ribs are flaring up every time you take a breath, just try to take slower breaths. It might take a little bit of practice, but we're gonna take the most simplest core position and 90 degrees holds in the air with your legs. Get a yoga block, roller, put it between your knees. Okay, your lower back pinned down to the floor. I got my arms out and I lift my legs. I make sure my ribs are tucked, pushing them down. Lower back is flattened to the floor. And from here, I want to take five breaths, but I'm going to give you just 3 for today. All the way in, all the way out. Three quick breaths for you. That's tough even. I can really feel as I'm trying to breathe all the way in, my lower back is fighting not to stay on. So that's why you want to just make sure you keep everything pinned down, and that's why I have my arms stretched out so that you can breathe into your upper chest. If you want more details on this exercise, go check it out. It's on my YouTube. I got a full tutorial on it, or I recently posted on my Instagram, and you can get the link for it there. Last but not least, so now you got a little bit of breathing going, you've got some movement going, and now you got your core contraction. Hopefully you could do that and actually be able to hold your ribs down and breathe properly. Now let's get these hips moving, and more importantly, we're gonna get one hip moving versus the other. This is a big reason I don't actually like hip thrusts, because you're moving them both at the time. You're never exploiting your weaknesses or even this lateralization patterning, which is actually how you're going to walk forward, side to side. So I've done this before, and I'm telling you again, this is one of the best exercises we should be always doing, tuning up our hips, tuning up an oblique, and we're getting a little bit of shoulder stability as well. You're gonna be in a side plank position, bend your bottom leg. We're gonna brace the bottom knee and shin into the floor, supporting ourselves with the arm, making sure you're actively pushing into the floor. You're gonna lift the hip, bring that knee forward just to complete the pattern, and then set yourself down to the floor. Lift the hip and extend the knee forward, and then slowly back to the floor. You can even add a reach and a row to make it look like a running pattern. If this is too much, let's just keep it stacked right here, hands on the hips. And then you can just extend your hips forward like this. But I prefer you get to this. And that's tough work. A lot of lateral line stability, a lot of glute strength, necessary for movement. Every time we need to do anything, one leg has to work versus the other. So you gotta make sure they're both just as strong as each other. Here we go, other side, last exercise, and then we're done. So bottom knee is bent 90 degrees. This arm is actively pressing into the ground. And if you need it to be easy, just stack your knees, hands on the hips, and hips forward and up. You can even gap the knees slightly, hips forward and up. Okay, if you've got that, this leg behind, you can go hips forward and knee forward. Right there, hips forward and knee forward. And then to complete the picture, we'll add the arm reach. And that is it. That's your 5 exercises. Let's debrief real quick. There you have it, folks. You have 5 different things you can do for your lower back support. We have movement, healthy movement, taking the spine throughout its range, big stuff. We have stability. This is the big one. You need stability. You need conscientious, concentrated core driven by exhalation. It is such a big deal. We should also be doing some exercises to get our core stronger, but most importantly, it's just this ability to even hold our ribs down. That's what it starts with. So it doesn't matter what core exercise you do or anything like that, it's have you got control of this within whatever core exercise it is that you are doing. All right. Support, it needs support. So this is stability, now it needs support, the structures around. Hips, get some hip strength. Hip strength is the key to longevity. Hip strength is pretty much the key to knee problems, back problems. Why? Because we are moving beings, we are alternating beings, and as much as we might sit all day, those steps that we take are going to be even more of a bigger deal. And so if we're not prepared for that, our lower backs are going to do a lot of the working of holding ourselves up, and it's a mess. Hip strength is always going to be a really big supporting cast or support system to whatever it is joint pain that you are going through. Bottom line, hip strength is seriously what we need more of. And then last but not least is breathing, which I kind of touched on it, and stability, because you're not going to get truly stable core if you're not truly breathing. And if you're not truly breathing properly, you're going to be a stressful breather. A stressful breather is a back breather. And you know, go figure what happens after when your backs are consciously on. So we got to work on breathing. It's got to be something that you want to implement in your exercise so that you're in control of it, conscious of it, etc., blah, blah, blah. However, what I noticed is the big deal is even when we're not doing stuff like that, when we're working, when we're stuck typing or in front of a computer, be conscious. Are you holding your breath? I know I sometimes am, especially when I'm really concentrating. I get very shallow breath. That's gonna mess with your system. That's gonna kick lower backs on and all that jazz. So be mindful of when you're working, how's my breath? So it's good to do breath work even independently, not just when you're working out. It's just pretty much the key to life of keeping our systems nice and healthy. That's pretty much it for today. If you like what you saw, don't forget to subscribe. If you have any questions, shoot me them in the comments. And last but not least, keep enjoying moving. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.